true horror stories. The whistle I heard echo back from the empty forest was exactly the same melody I had just made. But there was no one there. We were alone on a closed trail in the middle of the Australian wilderness, and something had just answered me. My name is Connor. I work in construction, and I'm in my early 30s. This happened during the Christmas holidays a few years ago, when my girlfriend Emma and I decided to take a 10-day road trip through Queensland in a rented camper van. Emma was 26 at the time, adventurous and always eager to explore off-the-beaten-path destinations. We had spent the first week exploring the stunning beaches along the coast, swimming in crystal-clear water, and camping under the stars at various beachside spots. But by day 7, we both felt the pull to see something different. The interior of Queensland promised dense forests, dramatic mountain ranges, and gorges that carved through ancient rock formations. So we turned inland, leaving the ocean behind and heading toward Carnarvon National Park, a massive wilderness area connected to other state forests that stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Our first stop was a lookout point perched high above a gorge, offering sweeping views of the valleys below. When we arrived in the late afternoon, there were only 2 other camper vans parked in the small clearing. It was quiet, isolated, exactly the kind of place we had been seeking. We set up for the night, cooked dinner over a portable stove, and planned to explore the area the following morning. But the weather had other plans. Rain began falling just after sunset, a steady drizzle that tapped against the roof of our van throughout the night. By morning, it hadn't let up, and the forecast predicted
more of the same. Emma and I debated whether to pack up and move on, but we had driven several hours to reach this spot and didn't want to leave without seeing anything. We decided to wait out the weather and explore once it cleared.
The rain continued all through that day and into the next morning. When I woke up on our second day at the lookout, I noticed that the number of vehicles hadn't changed. The same 2 camper vans were still parked in their spots, their occupants presumably waiting out the weather just like us. By late morning on that second day, the rain finally reduced to a light mist. Emma and I were restless from being cooped up in the van, so we decided to take a short hike despite the damp conditions. According to the map we had picked up at the visitor center, there was a trail that led along the top of the mountain range, a narrow ridge walk that offered views of the surrounding forest. The trailhead was only a few minutes' walk from our camping spot. The beginning of the trail featured man-made steps, basically just large rocks positioned to create a stairway up the initial steep section. As we climbed higher, I noticed something unusual scattered along the path. Every so often, there were massive flat stones embedded in the ground, positioned at random intervals with no clear pattern. These weren't natural formations. They had clearly been placed there deliberately, though for what purpose I couldn't guess. Each stone was enormous, easily weighing 100 kilograms or more, and they sat flush with the surrounding terrain as if they had been there for decades. The ridge itself was spectacular despite the gray skies. On both sides of the narrow path, the mountain dropped away at steep angles, plunging down into dense forest that extended as far as we could see. The isolation was complete. We were truly in the middle of nowhere, with no signs of civilization in any direction. The trail wasn't easy. Several times I had to help Emma climb over large boulders or navigate tricky sections where erosion had made the path treacherous. The whole hike to the end of the ridge and back was supposed to take about an hour, maybe a bit more given the wet conditions. When we finally reached the end point, we found ourselves standing at a sharp drop-off that fell away into the gorge below. The view was breathtaking, layers of mist hanging in the valleys, the sound of distant waterfalls echoing up from somewhere far below. We took several photos, ate some snacks, and rested for a few minutes before beginning the return journey. That's when things became inexplicable. As we retraced our steps along the narrow ridge, Emma stopped suddenly. She was staring at the ground with a confused expression. I asked what was wrong, and she pointed to a spot on the trail. One of those massive flat stones I had noticed on the way up, one that had been embedded in the ground right in the middle of the path, was completely gone. In its place was a fresh hole, the edges sharp and defined, the soil underneath darker where it had been protected from sun and rain. I stared at the empty space, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. We had walked this exact path less than an hour earlier, stepping right over that stone. There was no possible way we could have missed seeing it gone on the way up. But what she discovered next was even more disturbing. As we continued walking, we found more missing stones. Not just one or two, but 10 or more scattered across the entire length of the trail. Each absence was marked by the same fresh excavation, holes that hadn't been there before. I estimated there had been around 50 of these stones, total along the ridge, randomly positioned, and now a significant number of them had simply vanished. The logical part of my brain tried to find explanations. Maybe they had been there, but we somehow hadn't noticed them missing. But that was impossible. The path was narrow, the stones were huge, and we had walked carefully, watching our footing the entire way. Maybe someone had moved them while we were at the end of the ridge. But that made even less sense. These stones weighed as much as a person, maybe more. There was no way to get a vehicle up here. The trail was barely wide enough for hikers. Oh, even if someone had somehow carried them, where would they take them? And why? And how had they done it so quickly, so silently, without us hearing anything? We didn't see or hear anyone the entire time we were on that ridge. The path was so narrow, with clear sightlines in both directions, that no one could have walked past us without being seen. Emma and I exchanged uneasy glances, but didn't say much as we hurried back to the camper van. The rain had started again, heavier now, and we were both rattled by the experience. But that was only the beginning of what would happen in Carnarvon National Park. The following day, the weather remained miserable, constant drizzle and low clouds that obscured the mountain peaks. We drove to a different section of the park, hoping to find better conditions, or at least a change of scenery. This new area featured several hiking trails of varying lengths, all marked on a detailed map available at the entrance. When we arrived at the car park, there were only 2 or 3 other vehicles present, unusual for what was typically a popular destination. We studied the map and chose a moderate trail that would take us about 3 hours to complete. Most of the routes branched off from a main path leading to different waterfalls, lookouts, and scenic spots deeper in the forest. About 3 hours into our hike, Emma and I had seen everything we wanted to see and were ready to turn back. The constant dampness was beginning to wear on us, and the limited visibility from the fog made the views less impressive than we had hoped. We were about to retrace our steps when we passed a side trail that had been blocked off. A makeshift fence constructed from branches and rope stretched across the entrance, and a weathered sign read, "Closed due to flooding and dangerous conditions." According to the map, this trail extended for another 20 kilometers into a remote section of the park. But I noticed something interesting on the map. Just 1 kilometer down that closed trail was a small waterfall that looked accessible. I suggested to Emma that we walk just that short distance to see it. She was hesitant, pointing to the warning sign, but I argued that 1 kilometer would be perfectly safe and we would turn back immediately after. Eventually she agreed, and we easily walked around the flimsy barrier. The trail was overgrown, but still passable. Several fallen trees blocked the path, forcing us to climb over them, since walking around wasn't always possible through the dense undergrowth. I should mention that I always carry a machete in my backpack when hiking in remote areas. Along with emergency supplies, water, and snacks, the blade gives me peace of mind. Emma used to tease me about being paranoid, but I'd rather have it and not need it than the alternative. After about 20 or 30 minutes of walking, we reached the waterfall. It was small but beautiful, the water tumbling over moss-covered rocks into a clear pool below. We took some photos and rested for a few minutes, enjoying the relative quiet. The drizzle had intensified into light rain, so we decided to head back after just a brief stop. That's when I felt it. The sensation came over me suddenly as we started walking back toward the main trail. It was a feeling of being watched, but more than that, a sense of something malevolent focused directly on us. The hair on my arms stood up, and a chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the rain. I stopped walking and scanned the forest around us. The visibility was decent here. The trail followed a small creek through a valley between two hills, and I could see fairly far in most directions. There was no one visible. No movement. No sound except the rain and the distant rush of water. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it intensified. I told Emma we needed to move faster. She gave me a puzzled look, clearly not sharing my sense of unease, but she quickened her pace without argument. As we walked, I kept turning around, checking behind us, scanning the trees on both sides of the trail. After a few minutes, I made a decision. I stopped, unzipped my backpack, and pulled out the machete. Emma's eyes widened when she saw it, and she asked what I was doing. I told her I just didn't feel safe, that something was wrong, and I wanted to be prepared. Then, for reasons I still can't fully explain, I whistled. It wasn't a long sustained note, just a few short melodic sounds, like a little tune. Maybe I was trying to break the oppressive silence, or maybe some instinct made me want to announce our presence, to scare away whatever might be watching us. At first, nothing happened. We continued walking, me gripping the machete, both of us moving as quickly as we could without running. Then, maybe 10 seconds after my whistle, we heard it answered. The same melody. The exact same short sequence of notes I had just made, coming from somewhere in the forest behind us. I spun around, searching for the source. The trail behind us was empty. The forest on both sides showed no signs of movement, but someone or something had just perfectly mimicked my whistle. Emma's face had gone pale. Without me saying anything, she started walking even faster, almost jogging now. She had felt it too. Whatever presence was out there, she finally understood that we were not alone and not welcome. We still had to make it back to the blocked entrance and then rejoin the main trail. The entire way, that feeling of being watched, of being followed, never left. My hand ached from gripping the machete so tightly. Every rustle of leaves made my heart race. Every shadow between the trees looked like it might contain something watching us. When we finally crossed back over the makeshift barrier onto the main trail, the feeling lifted immediately. It was like stepping across an invisible line from a place of threat back into safety. My shoulders relaxed, my breathing slowed, and Emma and I looked at each other with mutual relief. We didn't speak much as we hiked the remaining distance back to the car park. When we reached our camper van, we didn't even discuss it. We just started packing up everything, breaking camp with an urgency neither of us needed to explain. Within an hour, we were driving away from Carnarvon National Park. Emma and I have talked about what happened several times since then. We've tried to find rational explanations for the missing stones, for the whistle that echoed back to us, for that overwhelming sensation of being unwanted in that place. But we have no answers. What I do know is this. Something in that forest didn't want us there. Something was watching us, following us, making its presence known in ways that defy explanation. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear that whistle in my mind. The exact melody I made, coming back to me from something that should not have been able to answer.